Hey everyone, this is Jim from Stuff We've Seen, and in honor of Criterion Channel returning to streaming services on Monday, April 8th, we thought that we'd take a little trip into our own Criterion closet. Mine is certainly not as big as Criterion's, but I wanted to just kind of pull out a few gems that you might want to look for when the service starts up on April 8th. So let's take a look. Here we have House. It's a crazy Japanese pseudo-horror film from 1979. It doesn't make a whole lot of sense. It's certainly not scary, but you will discover the most insane images and story imaginable, and it's certainly worth your time. Let's see what else we got here. This is Medium Cool. It's from the late 60s, and it's from Haskell Wexler, who's a cinematographer, and he won an Oscar for the cinematography for Who's Afraid of Virginia Woolf, and the studio said, well, what do you want to do next? And he said, I want to direct. And they said, well, what would you like to make? And he made that. And the studios pretty much never let him make another movie again. It was too radical. It was just too controversial at the time. It's certainly worth your time checking it out. So when the Criterion Channel launches, definitely go there. Harold and Maude. It's classic. And, you know, I always feel that everybody has seen this movie, but if you haven't, you certainly want to watch it. This is just a great film by the legendary director Hal Ashby. Features terrific performances from Bud Cort and Ruth Gordon. Again, it's a classic with a great song score by Cat Stevens. Repo Man. This film was very influential on me as a child, well, or as a teenager, and I've seen it, I don't know, maybe 30 or 40 times. It never gets old. There's so much greatness. Certainly, if you've never seen this film, you're going to want to check this out. Robert Altman's Shortcuts. Robert Altman always makes large ensemble films with multiple stories, so the short stories of Raymond Carver were sort of a perfect starting point for him to go in to examine Los Angeles in the early 90s, which is when the film comes out in the 1993. But instead of it being an anthology of short stories, he combines all the stories and the characters, and they overlap in very interesting ways. It is not necessarily a fun movie. It's very much a drama with some funny parts, but it's great, and some amazing performances in here from like Julianne Moore and Jack Lemmon, Lily Tomlin, Tom Waits, even a very interesting performance, kind of creepy, by Lyle Lovett. So you'll definitely want to look at this as well. Just maybe a couple more. Quadrophenia, featuring kind of music from The Who and based on their concept album. It's a great story about the mods versus the rockers. It takes place in the early 60s, and The Who sort of serves as sort of a backdrop for what these characters are into musically. It's a very interesting movie. I really like it, and it's one of those things that every time I come back to it, I love it even more. So definitely look for this when the Criterion Channel comes on. Twin Peaks, Fire Walk With Me. Now, this is interesting. It came out in the early 90s. I was really looking forward to it, having been a huge Twin Peaks fan, and it tanked. I got to see it as a special preview. I loved it. I thought it was fantastic, and I was shocked at the reaction, both critically and audience-wise. And I always believed that one day people would rediscover this film, and it took, 20 plus years. But then people finally started to realize that there was a lot going on that David Lynch would explore in his later work, and then especially the new series of Twin Peaks, which instead of really falling back on what made the original series great, he started to look at what he did in this movie and a lot of the plot and the characters and where they were headed is really starts with the genesis of this film. And it just makes this film even better because the new series of Twin Peaks was just, it's a classic. So, again, here's another one to check out when it's on the streaming service. But the Blu-ray is great because it has tons of extras, like about 45 minutes of additional footage that wasn't in the original film. So definitely worth your time checking out. Last but not least, oh, wow. You got to have the three colors. This is Krzysztof Kieślowski's masterpiece, Blue, White, and Red. And, it's a film that I actually bought this blind. I'd heard so much about the trilogy, never caught it when it was out originally in individual films. And I never got to go to a revival screening where they were all showing them back to back to back. So I decided that I would just get this and watch them. And they are just fantastic. Each one on its own is a great story, but when you put them all together, they really pay off. So I suggest watching these kind of in close succession, maybe binge watch the three colors. It's definitely something that I think it will change the way you think about films and story making if you see it. Anyways, that's just a little preview. This week's podcast episode of Stuff We've Seen, myself and Teal, we talk up the Criterion launch, and we each do a top 10 of films that we're either excited about seeing again or films that we're recommending that you check out when Criterion comes on. So definitely take a listen. It's available on our website, stuffwe'veseen.com, or you can subscribe to iTunes, which is free, and you'll just get all of the podcast episodes as they come on. But feel free to reach out to us at feedback@jimandteal.com, and I really hope you enjoy this week's episode. Thanks.